Hi, hello, and welcome to the section Data Indexing and Selection. Data indexing and selection means assessing and modifying values in Pandas series and DataFrame objects. As per the basic nature, a series object acts in many ways like a one-dimensional numpy array and in many ways like a standard Python dictionary. If we keep these two overlapping analogies in mind, it will help us to understand the patterns of data indexing and selection in the series objects. When the series acts as a dictionary, it provides a mapping from a collection of keys to a collection of values. When the series acts as a one-dimensional array, it builds on the dictionary-like interface and provides array-style item selection via the same basic mechanisms as NumPy arrays, that is, slices, masking, and fancy indexing. Similar to like series, a data frame acts in many ways like a two-dimensional or structured array, and in other ways like a dictionary of series structures sharing the same index. These analogies help us to work with the data frame objects when we try to index and select the data frame values. When the data frame acts as a dictionary, the individual series that make up the columns of the data frame can be assessed via dictionary style indexing of the column name. Equivalently, we can use attribute style assess with column names that are strings. When it acts as a two-dimensional dictionary, we can do many familiar array-like observations on the data frame itself. For example, we can transpose the full data frame to swap rows and columns. The indexing and selection of Pandas objects can be broadly categorized into two main groups, implicit and explicit. The implicit style of indexing and selection. It is generally used to assess the values by integers. It can be used when the indexing and selection is based on Pythonic style, that is, by using integers index values. Implicit index is useful when series or data frame doesn't have explicit labels or index. It is also helpful when series or data frame has integers as labels in both rows and columns starting with 0. Explicit style of indexing and selection. It is generally used to assess the values by labels instead of integers. It can be used when the indexing and selection is based on a dictionary style, that is, by using dictionary keys as labels. It is useful when series or data frame both have explicit labels, that is, row index and column index. It is also helpful when masking, fancy indexing, and slicing on series or data frame is done using the labels of rows and columns. One guiding principle of Python code is that explicit is better than implicit. The implicit and explicit index notations have two main differences. In implicit index notation, the final index is excluded in the slice. In explicit index notation, the final index is included in the slice. In implicit index, it always refers to integers as index values, whereas with the explicit index, it always refers to labels as the index values. When the pandas objects consist of both integer and non-integer and also explicit integer notation, the indexing, selection, and slicing becomes a bit confusing task. Hence, Pandas provides lock, ilock and ix indexers to index, select and slice the implicit and explicit indexers separately. First, the lock attribute allows indexing and slicing that always references the explicit index. The ilock attribute allows indexing and slicing that always references the implicit Python style index. Here I have mentioned some of the important indexing and selection options used in Pandas DataFrame object.